Welcome to this class. This is a class for human resource development. In the previous sections, we have understood why and how training has to be done. What is the meaning of training? What is the meaning of development? How it is and why it is important for an organization. We have also understood what are the ways in which a training can be given. It can be on the side or off the side. It can be given inside the organization, or it can be subjected to some other organization. Maybe it can be given as a program which can be given to somebody else to run on, because if they do not have that kind of an option where you have a trainer, then they are given to some else people. So training and on the job training, to improve yourself, to develop yourself, that is also very, very important. That is what we learned in the previous classes. So when we are talking about training, let me again refresh it with you. So when we are talking about training, it can be in job, or it can be before, like when you are doing your graduation or your any specialized course also. Suppose in hotel management, in tourism, what is the thing that you are learning in training? How to greet guests, how to welcome guests. Suppose you are working as a guide, how to treat guests when they are coming in a particular heritage sites. So the people, the guests which the guides are taking to a heritage site, how to talk about it, how to make it more important for that particular guest, to add on some stories into it, so that the guest who has come into a different country or a different location, he will understand about that thing. So for that, the guide needs to go through a proper training process. What should be his body language, whether and how he should behave in front of the guest, whether he should be very close, whether he should keep a proximity, whether he should not keep a proximity, which language he should prefer, whether it should be very casual or whether it can be informal, what. So these are the training things that has to be learned. That can be learned again on the job also or off the job also. Like if you are in an organization who are taking special care about you to teach, so they will do that training. Sometimes what happens when you become a senior person, you become a manager, then you learn to do your development. So you learn add-on, that is called as add-on languages, right? So we understood what is the need, what is an analysis, how to understand what is the requirement for a training, that is training need analysis. Then we understood what are the kinds of training that can be imparted, in what ways that can be imparted, or a classroom teaching, or you can say practical exams. That is also a part of training. So now today we are going to understand what is evaluation of training, right? So how do you evaluate? So we have already understood that there is a need for training. Then we understand what are the objectives that has to be done. Then the training course, what procedure we are going to take while taking the training. Then proper conduction of the training, which whoever is going to take the training. Then comes your evaluation, right? So this is what we are going to understand today. What is evaluation? How do you check what you have taught, has been understood or not? That is what is called evaluation. So when we are talking about training, that can only be checked. Like for example, in schools, you have been taught so many subjects, but at the end of the session, what you are doing is you're giving an examination. So examination is to check whether you have understood what has been taught in that particular semester or particular year. So that is understanding, right? So when we are talking about subjective evaluation, so generally evaluation is divided into two, subjective and objective evaluation, right? So what is subjective evaluation? Subjective evaluation is something which cannot be quantified. What is the meaning of a quantified? May seem a bit confusing. It is easier to think of subjective evaluation in terms of real world examples, like you use subjective evaluation criteria, for instance, when you're reading a book. Some people may enjoy a science fiction while others enjoy romance. Generally, this is happening post-corona a lot has been happening in this section. Everybody has their own viewpoints. So I understand a particular book in a different manner. I have a different pick from that particular book. I understand it in a different manner. My interpretation is in a different manner. So that is subjective. What is the meaning of subjective here? Subject wise. Like suppose I am a subject. A is a subject, B is a subject, C is like every person has their own understanding of that particular topic, or for that matter, for that particular book, like for the example which has just been said. So by this subjective interpretation, each person thinks one genre is better than the other, but in reality they are only relying on their personal taste and preferences. When teachers evaluate a student's performance in the same way, they are also relying on the subjective measures of evaluation. So you must have understood that recently psychology has been, or you can say, a very important part of the teaching curriculum that has happened, because it has been understood that only classroom teaching doesn't help in analyzing the student's strength. Sometimes what happens, the student is not able to deliver it or talk about it or tell about it. So there are now various means, various methods in which you can judge a particular student's knowledge, for that matter, for a particular trainee's knowledge. In giving you a short example, when you're talking about a hotel management or a hotelier or a hospitality sector, for that matter, or customer care, there is no fixed parameter. Like how to judge, like this person is very good and this person is very bad, or this person is medium. How do you judge it? We do not have that option of scaling, right? Because people to people, person to person, they are different. So what happens is how you interact with your immediate guest or immediate person who's in front of you. That person is judging you. How you have wished him. Suppose we are talking about an example of maybe a front office or maybe a room maid in a room, in front of a room, and there is a guest who's coming in. So how the maid, the chambermaid or the housemaid, houseboys reacted to that. Whether they have wished them with smile, whether they have been good enough in their etiquettes, whether they were shabby looking, how they were, what were the grooming standards, whether the guest was very happy with them. So who is judging these things? The guest is judging. I can just deliver it. Sir, good morning, how are you? Hope you had a wonderful stay. Do you require something? You can just call me. We are in the pantry. Or you can just ask us, do you require any bathroom supplies? Do you require any bathrobes? So these are some of the questions which a person can talk with the guest. If the guest is interested in talking, yes, this is also very important. Suppose the guest is not interested in talking, then he or she will become angry. Right? So then the analysis will become all wrong. So that is very, very subjective of interpretation of each person thinks and how they are being different. So this is subjective evaluation. Then what is an objective evaluation? Objective performance, where you can clearly judge, where you can clearly monitor the progress of a particular child or a trainee. Right? When you're taking a training session, when there is a proper 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there is an assessment scale, then you know that the objective calculations have been done. So while subjective evaluation relies on the opinions about intangible characteristics, objective performance evaluation in grading attempts to quantify measurable value of quality, objective evaluation happens most often in classes like maths and science, where each question on a test, for example, has only one correct answer, right? 2 plus 2 is 4. Somebody writes 5, somebody writes 6, somebody writes 3, it's wrong. So that is objective. You have a understanding. And for giving you example of a subjective, so the sky is blue today, I really like it. So this is my interpretation. The sky is not blue today, there is some white clouds today. So I do not like it. So that is a second interpretation. The sky is blue, the weather is not good. There is no sun today, I do not like it. So this is subjective. You have to have a different opinion of a particular topic. That is subjective. That's why it becomes very difficult to test subjective trainings, right? So evaluation criteria becomes objective when they are measurable. So measurable criteria can include the word count of a paper, time of a speech, the number of grammatical mistakes in an assignment. Some classes like art and writing, however, can be difficult to grade completely objectively, like I just mentioned, right? So how the colors were used, what kind of a palette was used, whether they were wax colors or they were watercolors, what kind of grade, what understanding. So that is very, very subjective. So if you understand it in a different manner again, so the main difference between subjective and objective evaluation criteria is that objective performance evaluation is scientifically quantifiable, calculatable. Its characteristic can be seen by anyone, not just the observer, or in the case of grading, the teacher. Subjective evaluation criteria, on the other hand, may look different depending on the observer. So teacher to teacher it changes, training to trainer to trainer it changes, and trainee to trainee it changes. In the same organization, in the same hotel, a person working or a trainee who's working will learn n number of things. A different trainee in the same organization may not learn a lot of things. Same ways how a teacher, when he or she is taking the class, will have their own personal opinions. That is why there are a lot of now criteria which has been added where a teacher cannot put on his personal views on the students' grades. Right? I do not like this child. I do not like this child. The child did not wish me good morning. The child did not say thank you to me. So that kind of bias, what I'm trying to tell you is that it can be subjective. So there is evaluation which cannot be changed. That is objective evaluation. So the problem with subjective and objective evaluation criteria is that few subjects are ever totally objective. So the more students are encouraged to think creatively, the more subjective factors will be introduced into classwork. In these class cases, the best way for teachers to remain objective is for them to grade projects using a rubric that outlines objective quantifiable criteria. So this is what I was trying to tell you, like many of the organizations have now added on these rubrics, how and what are the criterias. Like if the child has said so and so, 1 marks. The child has not said so and so, but he has understood in a different manner, mark that person 2 points. So this is what is subjective and objective evaluation. So any evaluation begins with the criteria which depend on the objectives. So what was the objective? Reaction of the trainees, whether the participants liked or disliked the program. See, like I mentioned, the teacher to teacher, it varies. A particular topic can be explained very smoothly, very easily with examples, lot of examples, and the students can easily understand and maybe put it on paper also. And sometimes the teacher will not be able to, the teacher may have the knowledge of it but may not be able to deliver it properly. So the reaction of trainees is also important. But here I would like to inform that it's not always the reaction of trainees which are a calculatable scale, to measure the trainers. Sometimes the plus and the minuses are added. Same the learning, whether the concepts, the ideas, the principles of the training were intellectually assimilated by the participants, whether they have understood it properly, what has to be done and what sequencing, whether they have understood it. Behavioral changes, whether the training caused people to alter their on the job. So this is the reason why most of the organizations are taking training. Why? Where, when? What? Why they have to go through a change in their because they are going to do better in their jobs. So whether this training has actually helped them in understanding themselves, learning better, and brought in behavioral changes. So the impact on the organization's effectiveness, yes. If every first 3 points are there, this trainee has understood it completely, what was the training for, what he has picked up, like what are the points that he has picked up, then whether the modified behavior caused positive results such as an increased output, improved quality and lower cost. For example, here I'll just explain. Suppose there is a factory, where you have ice creams being prepared, and suddenly the sticks which are coming in, they are not of a good quality. But being a person who doesn't understand what the stick quality should be, he or she has let it go. what happens? A whole bunch of the ice creams will go to waste. So when a person has been trained, so the output will automatically should come out that yes, that person has understood that this cannot go. For that matter, when you are working in a resort or a hilly area, and suddenly a guest comes in and says, I am sorry, I was not able to get any dinner. Can you prepare something for me? Suppose it's a small organization where you do not have a 24-hour kitchen running. So what you are supposed to do? You have not been trained for it. But then, because of your number of years of experience, because you have understood how it can be done, you know what is cooking, you can prepare aloo paratha for a potato, aloo paratha for him, or maybe a plain roti or some dal for him. So what will this improve? This will impact their organization. So the guest who was not having any food at that particular time got something to eat. So that is impact on an organization. When that guest goes out, back to his own state or where place he has come from, there will be good word of mouth. See, look, this is the place where I stayed, and in the middle of the night I wanted something to eat and they brought me something to eat. So I'm very happy. So next time that you go, you visit that particular resort or you visit that particular place. So why and how? This has been seen in many of the hotel organizations. I just want to quote here one more time the Taj group of hotels of the Bombay, when there was a bomb blast in that particular hotel. It has been mentioned many times in many YouTube videos and everything in news also, that the hotel staff was standing with the guest. Though they were not taking precautions like, okay, fine, I'll die. They didn't bother about it. They bothered about the guest, for the safety of the guest. Why did this happen? Because the employees of that particular hotel were trained in that particular manner to take care of their guest. And sometimes what happens, the work culture of that particular organization makes that person understand what is to be done in that kind of a situation. So there will be various kinds of other employees also who will not be taking that much responsibility because they will be taking care of themselves. So what I am trying to tell you here is that training can be imparted, but its take home can be different, right? So each trainee can take it in a different manner, but the process has to be similar. That is what is required, like subjective and objective evaluation. So you find that there is a behavioral change in a particular employee or a particular trainee who had gone through a 6 days training. So yes, that is good. That is what was required at that particular stage. Maybe in the next stage, that particular trainee will learn something different. Right? In a factory process where there's so many people who are working on a line basis, suppose I miss my particular cue. So the next thing goes to the next person. So next person is again puzzled because that thing is going to go for fault. So training is very important, and how you have understood that is also very, very important. So analysis of the outcome. Like I mentioned, there is a faculty development program happening. Some organizations are taking care of faculty development program every 2 months or every 1 month or every week, 1 day or 2 days. Sometimes organizations are taking 7 days training. So what is the analysis of the outcome of particular training? That is important. So after the evaluation is made, the situation should be analyzed to find the probable causes for a difference between the expected outcome and the actual outcome. The fault may lie in the designing of a program or its implementation. So the organization's investment in terms of energy, time, and money made in these programs must be justified by the related outcome in terms of the increased efficiency and effectiveness of the participants. I would like to inform here that the organizations who are taking care of their employees, they are taking care of their employees through training them. So there is a lot of investment happening in training. So you must have heard about OCLD, Welcome Group of Hotels Training Center. Why they are so interested, Taj Management Training Program is also there. Why the hotels are taking care, so much care of creating a manager by special training? Why? Because they are sure that once the student or the trainee who has joined in will be able to understand the culture of that particular organization, how the processes can be done in a smooth manner, what is the time limit that has to be completed. Like suppose there is a task which is time bound, you have to finish it in time, you have to learn to do it. It's not something which suddenly you will be developing. No, it will take time for you to develop. So there is a lot of investment in some of the MNCs. They are sending their candidates outside the country to learn a particular process. In some BPOs it is happening. So they are investing the ticketing, the staying, the fooding, everything, lodging, everything is being taken care of by the organization. You are just supposed to go there, learn about it, and come back and teach here, or impart that particular knowledge which you have acquired there and teach in this particular scenario or the particular organization that you're working. So outcome is very, very important. So whatever investment the organization is taking care on you, or the development process that is being taken care of, whether you are able to understand it, and whether you are able to impart it in your organization. So the efficiency and the effectiveness both are calculated. And generally it has been found that a person who's going abroad, a person who has there is some kind of a bond which has been signed, like after doing the training, after investing so much on that particular candidate, suddenly that candidate tends to leave that particular organization. So it cannot happen, because you have invested so much on the particular candidate. So these things are very important for an organization. So analysis is very important. So whatever training program was put together for a 2-day program, 1-day program, 3-day program, or a 1-week program, or a 1-month program, whether that was effective or not, and what was the outcome of it, whether the expected outcome and the actual outcome are similar or not. That is what is important here. And yes, if there is some kind of consequently, if necessary, precaution should be taken for designing and implementing in the future programs. Yes, some faults were found, or something which was not understood by the most of the trainees, or there was some kind of because every training, after training, there is a feedback session which comes in, right? The feedback for the trainers, feedback for the trainees themselves, whether they have understood the lecture and whether the lecture was easily deliverable to them or not, whether they were made convenient for them to understand or not. So both the things are there. So that is very, very important. So the next topic that we are going related with training is your retraining. So when we talk about the word retraining, you might feel that training ho gaya. Then what is the requirement for retraining? So retraining is basically when you learn something which is new again, right? So retraining, reskilling, and upskilling. There are these three words are very, very important nowadays. Skilling, right? Skilling, the new term that has come in is skilling. So then reskilling and retraining. So while retraining, reskilling, and upskilling are all closely related, they have some key differences. So for retraining, what happens is it is a typical teaching them new skills, or are training them on a completely new subject. This could come into play when hiring new people who have, for instance, recently been laid off due to the pandemic, or for in-demand roles that have opened or have been newly created at any company. It could be hiring former hospitality professionals to work as a reception staff at your organization. So when we are talking about a retraining, we are talking about people who were working, but suddenly due to some reasons, they are shifting their roles, or they are again learning the basics. Like when you are in a resort hotel, maybe in a Rishikesh, or some kind of a remote locale where you do not have softwares, when you do not have computers, you just have still the books, the day books or the log books where you are taking the registration, everything, registration book is there. But then suddenly you plan to come down to New Delhi, you come to plan to Bombay, you come to plan to Chennai. What happens then? You have to learn the computers. You have to learn the softwares. So you already know that there is to be an entry of the name, the place, and everything in your GRE card. But suddenly when you are doing it in a system, it becomes different. So you know about the basic part of it, but you know the computer part, how to do the entries in your computer. Then it is a retraining. And sometimes what happens is you are working in an organization or in a particular profile for 6 maybe years, and then suddenly you feel, I don't like this kind of a job anymore. There are so many examples in the MNCs, in Google, the people who were working with very good salaries, but then suddenly what happened is they want to leave that organization. They said, okay, fine, let me prepare samosas for my father's. There's a story where a professional from in a banking sector, I think, or a finance sector, he left his good paying salaried job to run his father's samosas or a dosa, I think, idli organization. So complete turnover. So they have to learn it again, right? So that is retraining. When they are learning something again, that is retraining. And when we are saying about reskilling, so reskilling is also part of the training, but it is related with the skills needed for slightly different job at the same company. So reskilling often happens after redundancy. Like sometimes you have not been working like maybe for 5 years suddenly, or maybe 1 year you have not been working. So for that you need to put up some kind of a training so that your hands, your skills are again sharp enough. So when organizations want to keep good employees, when their current role has become obsolete, so they need to reskill themselves. So instead of letting them go, they reskill them to put their talent to use somewhere else in the company. Like I mentioned, so the computer has become an important part. So what is upskilling? You are already at a particular level, you are on the second level. So for upskilling, you are going for a third or a fourth level. So teaching employees new skills to improve their performance in their current job roles without necessarily changing their positions or career path. This is often the case when employees need to learn about new technologies or software that have been rolled out at their organization. See, it can happen in both cases. It can happen in upskilling also. Is happening in retraining also. So what you are at a particular level, you have already trained yourself, and then suddenly you are upskilling yourself. You are retraining yourself. You are relearning something again. So it may not be the same thing that you are learning again. It can be a different thing also. So retraining can be learning the same thing again, which you have already forgotten, or maybe some new changes have brought in, or retraining, that means you are learning something which related with that particular product, but in a different manner. So what are the benefits of a retraining? So knowledge is the key to success. So when it may be that the people who are retrained can be in that position because of unfortunate circumstances, such as a mass layoff or redundancies. The beauty of the job is that they don't define people. So people can change track and learn something different if they need to. There is a story coming in, and maybe in the net or YouTube, you must have watched it. There is one person, very aged, something around 60. He was a retired person. He was sitting at home. He was having a body issue, like he had grown fat, and suddenly he has become a model. He has become a top male model. So at the age of 60. So when you have learned something, it is always useful. It's something like something which doesn't go away is your training. So every time the knowledge that you learn, the knowledge that you pick up, the knowledge, that's why they say that read books, read books, read books. Why do you say that every time you have to read books? Because every time you're learning something. And sometimes it happens that stays with us. Some of the things you may forget about it, but some of the things they keep in your mind. So that's how the benefits of retraining is that it always is beneficial. And benefits for the employees, retraining enhances the skill set people already have. If the job they are retraining for is vastly different from what they used to do, not all skills are hard skills, and many of the soft skills needed for different roles are transferable and easily built on. And the second point is retraining means an opportunity to learn the most in-demand skills and competencies within an industry, which sets them up for easier career progression and future employment opportunities. Retraining for a new role and having the opportunity to learn and develop new skills can help make people feel more valued and can help give them a new sense of purpose, especially after being laid off or made redundant. So this is very important in the current scenario. Like after COVID, many people have lost their jobs. I think many people will have to retrain themselves, relearn something new to get a better job option. In fact, the hotel industry, the hospitality industry has completely frozen down. Many of them have lost their jobs. Many of them are still at the same level like the 2 years back they are taking very less salaries for their work. So yes, it is going to pick up, but this is a good time to retrain yourself, because this is a time if you do not have a job at this time, you can always learn something online. There are so many courses which are running. So retraining is very important. And how is it beneficial for an organization? So again, as mentioned, knowledge is very important. So having more employees up to date with the latest information and skills needed in industry will help produce better products and services, whether it would be through improving customer service, refining process with innovative ideas. The second is the maybe happy and content employees equals less turnover, which can save any organization time and money in the long run. So this is very important, because when you have spent money to train them, that is going to be helpful for your organization in the long term. So happy and content employees are going to stay with you. So your spending on training will be less. So while spending time preparing your retraining modules, organization will be able to evaluate the way organization goes about processes and perhaps refine those where needed, which can make organization more efficient, saving time for existing staff as well as those who are being retrained into new roles. So this is also very important, because the organization is going to evaluate themselves. Yes, the new people, they have learned new things. So then the organization will automatically shift to that particular thing which the candidates have learned, so that the organization learns better and improvises themselves better, right? So thank you so much.